everyone. Tanya Bartolini here with you with Business and Beyond. Welcome to Feature Friday. If you have not done so, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and do not forget about that notification bell so that you know when I have more Feature Friday businesses on here so that you can learn and hopefully apply it to your business to be more successful. Today's guest is a good friend of mine, Michael Mason. He is the owner of My Capital Needs. They are a business funding company that can help almost any business find their needed money. They offer everything from business credit cards, term loans, lines of credit, to hard money lending like startup capital and angel investing. The biggest difference is that they will work with you to make sure your business is structured and set up to receive the maximum funding so that you can not get declined, and you do not need to have a perfect credit score. So Michael, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, so
Yeah.
am I, because I think so many businesses need funding and they need capital, whether it's startup or in the middle, or it's, for expansion.
Usually when it's too late.
And
That's when
usually when
people think
it's,
about it. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So I love that you help them structure their business properly so that they can get the funding more quickly.
Yep. Yeah. That's a big key of it. A lot of people just don't know what they don't know. You know.
That, but before we start into all of that,
Yep.
I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself so that my audience knows who we're talking to.
Excellent. Yeah. Once again, my name's Michael Mason. My company, My Capital Needs. I think really first and foremost, I'm a father. I think it's funny. We were talking about kids earlier, and throughout my whole business career, I've probably owned 30 upside of 30 businesses in 6 or 8 different fields. And before my son was born, that was like somebody asked me, "Who are you? What are you?" And it was always my business. I'm a this, I'm a that, I do this, I do that. Now it's kind of like, hey, I'm a dad, and by the way, I do this. You know what I mean? It's just weird how it, like, children change your perspective on things like that, which is kind of an interesting, outlook to life. But now all the stuff that I do is to pass on to him. You know what I mean? So my knowledge, so just like my dad did with me, it wasn't with business, but it was, what he knew. He was a woodworker, this, that, that kind of stuff. So yeah, like I said, since 1988, I've probably upside of 30 businesses. A good majority of them have all worked out, and I've been able to sell them. Not everything works out. I got to say, 6 to 8 different kinds of industries, from restaurants, I was partners in a hedge fund, insurance agencies, merchant service companies. I mean, I've had pretty much a little hand in everything. Real estate company for a while.
So you're extremely familiar with capital funding and capital needs.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've gotten into this. I've just learned over the years, perfecting it, and it kind of led me to, I just sold an insurance agency, which is how we met. I had my insurance agency, and that was my third or fourth one that I had owned, and I felt like I needed a change, and I was going through this process again to set up a new business. Didn't know what I was going to do yet, and one of my former clients, made an offer to me. So that's kind of how we got into doing what we're doing.
So that's actually my next question is,
Yeah.
what's the reason you're in this business? What do you love about this business?
Yeah, that's like I was saying, like I kind of, not that I stumbled into it, but um I've had such great success setting businesses up. And I think really the biggest thing that I love about what I'm doing now in my business is that most people, most of my competitors, I should say, they try to make one product fit. you know. They focus on, merchant cash advances. They'll focus on term loans. They'll focus on credit card stacking. They try to make one product fit everybody, and that's just not the case. So I really like looking at somebody fulfilling their short-term needs, and then if their business isn't set up correctly, working with them to make the subtle little changes that make them look like a real business so that they can get more traditional stuff. So a lot of times businesses have to take what they can get right now until we can correct things. And it's
That
great to watch somebody go from point A to, Z, it's fun. That it's kind of an ego thing, I think, maybe. Hey, I did that,
You know what? I kind of I have to say that I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah,
because as a business coach and consultant,
yeah,
I love helping people go from having a what I call a glorified job,
yeah. An
right?
underpaid job.
And turning it into a real business where they can have the freedom of time, the freedom of money, where they can take a vacation and not have to work,
Yeah. You're
right?
not, like I
And
said earlier, you're not the business. The business
yeah,
is, yeah, exactly. It took me a very long time to realize that, but yeah.
and that's and
Your
that's one
business is not
thing.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's not your baby either. You're
No.
not supposed to take care of your business. Your business is supposed to take care of you.
Yeah. I think
That's
that's one of the biggest obstacles most businesses encounter.
that's yeah.
It's,
So I love that you help them restructure it, which also helps them gain that freedom
mhm.
and be more eligible for that capital to be able to
Yeah.
sustain.
Yep. Yep.
So, what are some obstacles that you have gone through, that you have faced in running your business? And more importantly, how have you overcome them?
I think the biggest obstacle I had to overcome was what we were just talking about. When you started, every business I've started, it's like it's your baby, it's your thing. You're the only one that knows how to do every single thing correctly. And that's not really the case. You know what I mean? Like most of the time, I think the hardest thing that a small business owner has to do is to learn how to delegate power. So like a lot of times they're going to sit there and do non-money making things. I give you a perfect example. When I had my hedge fund, right? It was how it worked was all the other people that were running it, they had an assistant, right? And I was like, I can do this myself. So I was sending out packages, I was doing everything, and it took me away from the money producing things, right?
Yeah,
I just felt like I didn't need to pay the salary of somebody else. And then all of a sudden, I finally got to the point where one of the other guys that was working with me, sat me down. And he's like, older gentleman too. He's probably 15, 20 years older than me. And he's like, hey, why are you doing all this work? You just spent 2 hours doing this and, you could have been trading and managing and doing other stuff. He's like, yeah, but the cost, he goes, this is what he said to me. He says, I'm going to pay her for the first month, right? If it doesn't work out, great, and then what you're going to do is if you keep her, you just reimburse me what I paid her. No harm, no foul, and everything. I don't think it was within maybe 2 weeks of hiring that assistant that I wasn't working until 10 o'clock every night. I was going home at normal hours, and my production almost was up 25% the first month. So well superseded her salary. And then I think within a year, I had tripled my income just by hiring that person, delegating power. But
that
that's the hardest thing for a person to do is give up control of their business to somebody else.
yes. And I find that sometimes, and I don't know if this is also how your thinking was, but you think, well, I don't want to spend that money. I don't want to
You don't
incur
want
an
it cost.
expense.
Yeah, that's it. It's the cost. 90% of the time, it's the cost, and nobody's gonna. If I pay somebody X number of dollars to do that, they're not gonna do it the same way I would do. And I think that's the cost is definitely a part of it, but you feel like you're wasting your money because they're not going to do the job you're going to do. You know,
And
and
but
I
in reality, it's
but
actually an investment that
it's
gives
totally
you
yeah,
at least the 3-time return. right?
Oh, it was easily 3 times. Like I looked back at it and I was like, that is the dumbest thing I ever thought was going to happen. You know, and every time I started a new business, you need to be frugal. When you start up, you can't spend everything, but there comes a time where you got to. So that was a very long time ago. There's VAs now that can do simple things for you. You know what I mean? I just had a VA the other day working on some templates I needed for Adobe, you
That
know? So like that's like would have been 2 hours out of my day, talking to clients, setting up files to go out for underwriting and stuff like that. Like that's making me money, but I needed these templates done. So back in the day, we didn't have that luxury. You know what I mean? Now it's easy to do. You shouldn't be if you're not. The other key is you got to look at how you weigh that, right? If you're paying this person, let's say $20 to do those templates, I think that's what I sent the person, $20, right? Potentially, I put 3 deals into underwriting that are going to make thousands. You know
that's
what I mean? So, like, how is that even a? But getting rid of that control, part of it's control, part of it's money, you know, and that's like you said, that's one of the reasons I think J. Paul Getty said it best. He goes, "I'd rather have 1% of 100 people than 100% of one person," and
yes.
it's totally, and that's it's hard for a business owner to do that, you know.
And that's why the art of delegation is an art, right? Not everybody can delegate properly, and it's something that you have to learn. But once it's learned, it makes your life so much easier and
Yeah,
so much more profitable.
yeah, and I think the biggest part, do most of your clients, are they individual owners or they have partners or does it vary all over?
It varies all over
Yeah,
from,
because I've noticed a lot of times, like I've started out in a single business, and then eventually what ended up happening was I have to partner up with somebody because they had an expertise that I didn't, that I was wasting too much time on. And, you know what I mean? And that's another ego that I had to overcome too, is why do I want to give up what I've got to bring somebody else in but that's I think Rockefeller said it, like I know what I know and I pay somebody else to come in and educate me on what I don't know, you know?
yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
that's the thing. When it comes to brains, 1 plus 1 does not equal 2.
Yeah. Like, let's, if you're dealing with like a retail product and you have a great product, that doesn't, just because you knew how to manufacture it, make it, that doesn't mean you know how to market it. That doesn't mean you know how to, to produce it. You don't know how to manage these people. Like you just got to hire the people or pay for the knowledge that you don't know. I've taken many courses and, over the years, I've, taken a course from this guy on how to set up credit and that kind of work, but it didn't, and you just learn a little bit of everything. And I think some of the best, if you can keep the expenses down, is hard knocks, right? You make a mistake and you spend money on it. You don't want to do that a second time, you know,
See, and what's that saying? Smart people learn from their mistakes. Geniuses learn from other people's
people's
mistakes.
mistakes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The school of hard knocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's the thing. Yeah. And I honestly think sometimes you do have to make financial mistakes not to do them again. You know what I mean? If you're learning from other people and it doesn't affect you, you can kind of get laxed on that too. Because somebody else says, "Oh, hey, that doesn't work." But my ego a lot of times would go, "Okay, but let me prove you wrong."
yes.
You know what I mean? So that's I think a lot of things that is a big struggle for most people. I think the other thing too that I've learned as being a business owner, almost all my life, since 1988, I think I've owned a business, some form of fashion. And if I didn't own the business, I was working with somebody who was teaching me the business to do so I could do it on my own. So, back to the school of learning,
Yes.
So, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have a hard time with, you know.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because that is an obstacle that almost every single business owner that I've spoken to has to overcome or has endured. Now on the flip side of that,
Mhm.
what your business is running smoothly and how did you accomplish that?
It's funny because I think they're almost tied in for this business anyway. So I partnered up with a gentleman who is an expert in the underwriting department. Like he could look at something and find 100 ways to structure that deal. You know what I mean? So that's his forte. So I started doing it and realized, oh my God, it's taking me 2 days to underwrite a deal and he can do it in 30 minutes. So we've teamed up. Yeah.
That
So back to saving time. So I'd rather give up money and work with him than try to do it myself.
so
So
but look at that. You just said what's running smoothly is having a partner to do the underwriting
the delegating it. Yeah. Back to
and
delegating.
delegate
Yeah.
because it used to take you 2 days to do the underwriting, whereas it takes him a half hour. So now instead of being able to do
If it's
one
a small,
deal,
if it's a small deal, he can have it done in 5, 10 minutes. Would have taken me 2 hours.
so instead of having one deal every 2 days, you can
Exactly.
potentially have, I don't know,
Yeah.
16
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
or more.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's so in this case for me, instead of going it on my own and, realizing I wasn't the best at that, I might get to that point someday, you know, but, and that's the whole part of bringing him on eventually. We're going to partner and, you learn the business better, and then
And
that's how and maybe at one point, I mean, we have a great working relationship, so I don't know if things would ever change, because of that. So,
well, that's where contracts and partnership
yeah,
agreements and
yeah,
things
yeah,
come in
correct. Yeah,
to
yeah. So I don't know if
ensure.
anything would ever in the foreseeable future change. We might go in different directions a little bit, but I think we're going to always work together. You know what I mean? He's got the
Oh, that's
same
fantastic.
moral ethic, you know, he's not just pushing a product on somebody to push a product. We try to make sure it fits, and which is not common in the industry. You know, like I had said, there's try to make one thing fit everybody that's most profitable for you, but that's usually not how it is.
Well, and that's why I prefer brokers for
Yeah, the model.
everything,
Yeah.
right? Because they're not tied to one
Oh, got it.
company or
Yeah.
one product. They
Hmm.
can actually take the time to assess your needs and
Yeah.
figure out what's going to best
What's
fit you,
best? Yeah, exactly. That's
right?
always I mean, I buy my cars through a broker. I bought, everything, you know, just because I've come from that model, I know it works. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, because the broker is there more for you rather than for the
Yeah.
company or the
Yeah.
product that they
What do
work
you
with.
want? Yeah. What do you want? Yeah. Let me
Yes.
find it. Yeah.
So do you have any words of advice for our audience?
Well, I think the biggest word of advice well, there's a couple of things. From just a business standpoint, obviously knowing what you know, right? And hiring the correct people to fill those gaps or working with them or doing that other avenue of somehow getting them involved to, even if it's a short-term help or, like coaching. I mean, like most people, it like kills them to probably say, I need a coach. You know what I mean? It's ego. It's silly, so treat your business like a business, not like your friend. You know what I mean? It's not your, oh my God, I love it. It's gonna die. It's gonna work. It's not a child. It's a business entity, right? And then the second thing most businesses never have is an exit strategy. You
Oh,
got to come into your business and say, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 years, 10 years, and I need to be able to sell this business. Most people enter into something that they are the business. What good is that going to do somebody else? Like you can't, every business I've ever started, I've always had an intent to sell. You know what I mean? So if you own a business now, make friends with business brokers so they can tell you how to do that. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that's part of what you do as well. but you know, you don't want to, you want to be able to step away from the business and have somebody else run it, or you want to step away from the business and be able to sell it as a running, functioning business. I mean, that's how you really make money owning businesses. It's not from running them. It's from building them up, getting them running, and then let some other idiot buy it that's too lazy to do it. It's the reality of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for people to, people would rather know. It's back to that, like, working for a corporate company or working for yourself, right? People who are leaving that industry, they want to know they're going to make money, so they're willing to purchase something. It's always the way it is. Every business I've ever sold to, except for a small handful, or somebody who was leaving the business world, wanted to buy something. They wanted something established. They wanted something that was rocking and rolling already. They knew, hey, I'm willing to spend this money because I know it's going to generate enough revenue to pay it off in 2, 3 years. So
And you hit on a couple of really great points. One is the coaching, right?
yeah.
People are so afraid to say, I need a coach because they see it as a sign of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at really successful people, I mean, look at Oprah, look at Tony Robbins, look at all of the athletes that are
Yeah.
in the Olympics, or they all have multiple coaches.
Yeah. For different areas too.
Yes, so it's not a weakness, it's a
Yeah.
strength to say, hey, I'm in the forest. I need people to come out from the outside and look and help me see through the trees,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, because we all have limitations. We're all only human. And even
Yeah.
I have multiple coaches.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
this coach and I have multiple coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yep. And
that
I think the other big problem that people have when they get started with their business is they don't portion their setup capital correctly. So I think the biggest struggle that I've ever seen, like when people come to me, hey, I ran out of money, 90% of it's because they're not marketing. So like I've always used the rule of thumb, whatever your startup capital is that you have, right? Let's say it's $300,000, right? You're going to use 100 to build your product, right? To, like get, like if you need a physical location, if you're creating something, a third of it should go to that setup of the business, right? And then a third should go to your inventory, and a third should be marketing, right? You need to market, like the you know, that's how it should be. And every time I've seen people like, oh, I had 300, I spent 200 on the build out, 100 getting my inventory. Now I got 25,000 to market. Yeah, that'll last you like an hour. And that's why most restaurants fail. That is
because of the
99%
marketing.
is marketing. I've had a few restaurants, and I people that I purchased them from. What had ended up happening was they were great in the kitchen. They were great up front, which is odd. Like a chef is good in the back and in the front,
Huh.
but he didn't know how to. Yeah, most artistic people are really not, people talking. It's not their motif. I would say,
That's
they'd rather work in the kitchen and create the art and instead of dealing with people.
and
And
that's okay,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to have someone who's going to
yeah.
be able to run it.
And correct. And that's why I came in those restaurants, was to, show him how to market, network, do things, you know, talk
And
to the
that's
clients up front.
because you can be the best at what you do, but if nobody knows about you, how are you ever going to sell anything?
Yeah. And,
That
marketing just isn't your regular, and this took me a long time to learn too, putting a billboard sign up. You know what I mean? Word of mouth is the best one. Networking events, going to chamber events, meeting those kinds of groups. Those are relationships that I've had. I still talk to client. I did a deal yesterday with somebody who I knew from 2 businesses ago that I owned from a networking group that I was in. And he just started a restaurant, sold the business that I knew him from, and is starting a restaurant. So here's somebody from 3 businesses ago that, and that's just internal networking. That's not like putting a billboard sign out. So networking comes in different forms and fashions. It's not just print and ads and emails and campaigns. You need a little of both,
Yes,
all forms of
you
it. And that's where most
definitely.
businesses fail. They're not getting their word out correctly.
That's and so one other thing that you had touched on is capital, and I want to go back to that a little
Mhm.
bit, considering that that is
Yeah.
your business.
Yep.
And you said most people come to you when they run out of money. Isn't that a little too late to start thinking about, getting capital?
Correct. The person I was just telling you about, he's opening a second store, right? And typical, Florida delays. He negotiated a 7 month no pay on the lease because the building inspector, like when they submitted the plans, they told him, "Oh, 3 months in approval process," right? So there was like 3 or 4 things that needed to be changed. Well, guess what? Now it's another 3 months. So now he's into the 7th month and they still haven't even been able to build out. So now he's paying a lease, he's doing this, and that's why he's coming to me.
And that's typical.
And it's typical. Typical. So like the line of credit that we're getting from and the business credit cards that we're getting from, he should have done that before he started and had it as a backup. You know,
So when should people come to you and what if they already have all the money that they think they need? Should they still come to you?
well, it couldn't hurt to talk to somebody to see because I had a gentleman. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I've got all the capital I need," and he had a business credit card with like $10,000 limit on it, right? And then 2 months later, he calls me, "Oh, I've got an opportunity to do a trade show, right? And I need $30,000 worth of product, and I'm gonna sell it. And then the beauty of it is because I'm buying in such bulk, I'm getting another 20% discount on it. So even if I sell it at a discount, I'm gonna triple my money. So I forgot, I think he needed like 40 or $50,000 really fast. So I was able to get it, but he had to pay the highest percentage. You know what I mean? He had to do a merchant cash advance, which they're pricey, but he had he had the money in 24 hours, and that's what he wanted. You know what I mean? And he knew he was going to make the money. So it wasn't so bad, but he thought his, one $10,000 credit card was going to be great, for all his expenses. And the same thing happened to the restaurant I was talking about too. They were, using their credit card for daily incidentals, I guess you would call it. And they thought that was enough.
So it's better to have that line of credit in case you need it than not have it and have to pay.
Because typically when you get tight and you need it, there's something going on in the business that's going to make you qualify for less or not at all. You know what I'm saying?
Should
And that's
people come when they're opening the business or after they're already in it?
like I said, I can do startup capital too. So like if I'm working with a person who's doing tire recycling, he needs $10 million, and he's got no revenue, no nothing other than a track record, and he owns this building. But I mean, for the most part, we've done small little working with a company that's doing bottled canned drinks, like cocktails, canned cocktails. So they're doing different phases, so it's all good to before, after. I mean, obviously you want to see what you can qualify as a startup business for. We even do SBAs too. You know what I mean? So if they, sometimes an SBA will work too if they've got decent credit, so it's better to have available cash and not need it. You know what I
True.
mean?
And it's better to use other people's money to open up your
Always.
business.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Especially, people focus on interest rates. And I go, okay, but how much is the profit you're making on that? So if you're paying 25% interest, but now you're netting 70%, okay, so now you're still netting 40%. It's still, you know what I mean? Like it's cost of doing business. You know what I mean? It's no different than paper towels going up for restaurants and stuff like that. You got to price accordingly,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the numbers.
Mhm.
People need to know their numbers,
Yeah,
because businesses live and die on numbers.
yeah, yeah, yep.
And so, Michael,
Mhm.
how can people get in touch with you?
So my office number is, like if you want to call and talk, is 561-549 9092. The website's mycapitalneeds.com. And then my email is Mike at mycapitalneeds. Those are the best ways. And then obviously, I have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that kind of good stuff. It's all My Capital Needs as well.
My Capital Needs. And we will have all of that information at the end of the video as well. So don't worry, you will not miss it.
Excellent.
Um, thank you
And
so
make
much.
sure you mention her name, so at least I know. I always like to say thanks. It's always
Make
good
sure to
to,
mention Tanya Bartolini
yeah,
when you call Michael.
yeah, just so I know, because it's, always good to, thanks. And, maybe there's always something there that, we can help you a little different with, because
And also tracking, right? That
yeah,
helps with tracking.
that's really the main reason.
That's yes.
Yeah,
And as a
knowing
business
where stuff's
coach,
coming from. Yeah,
I'm very big on tracking. So thank
yeah.
you again for that little tidbit. Always track
Well,
where
and it's just
clients
common. Hey, I'm working with so and so. Great, thanks.
and that too. Yes. So again, thank you so much for all of this information.
My
There was
pleasure. Hopefully it
great
helps.
tidbits. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is if somebody wants to call and talk, I could go over how their current business is set up and all the little details to make sure it's correct. I just gave yesterday a whole 1 hour presentation on it to a group of people. I had
And
actually given a presentation like this and I had so many questions that I ended up doing a little thing in my office for all of them instead of trying to answer it one-on-one.
that's that is fantastic.
Yeah, it was so yeah, feel free to reach out and if you think you're going to need credit, let's make sure you're set up to get it.
So
And
thank you, Mike.
that's no charge. I mean, that's like, that's
That's
always,
complimentary,
yeah,
even better.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's spreading the wealth and knowledge, knowledge is wealth.
It is. It is.
So,
Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
mhm.
And until next week, don't forget to hit that notification button so you can get some more tidbits from businesses and have a wonderful, prosperous week.